Shut up and sit down.
Hello, my friend. You are listening to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast, the number one place for innovative marketing, retention strategies, and business growth ideas made just for dance studio owners. Now, this isn't your average business podcast. We're here to shake things up, simplify the hustle, and focus on real, actionable insights. I'm your host, Jen Dalton, and after 30 years of running studios, coaching owners, and scaling businesses, I know one thing's for sure. There's no one size fits all in this industry. You've got the passion, and I've got the tools to help you take it to the next level. So hit that subscribe button, grab a coffee, and let's scale your studio together. Hi everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Now, this episode was one that was not going to be going in now, but off the back of conversations with some studio owners, and in particular one who is a very good friend, she asked me to go deeper into the topics that I've been covering over the last couple of weeks. So there was originally the pre-planning questions to ask yourselves to get ready, get your head in the right place to start the planning process for 2026. But then last week I went more into the role of the studio manager and how I evolved that myself from the very beginning of my business to what it looked like when I ended. And so today, off the back of that and the conversations and the questions that I had with my friend and with some other studio owners, I'm going to be diving deeper into the traits that I'm looking for when I'm hiring, because it's probably not what you think it is going to be. Because after years of hiring and delegating and creating job roles, and also navigating different personalities inside the studio, I learned that hiring successfully is rarely about finding someone with the perfect resume. Instead, it's about finding someone who fits, someone who gets it, someone who can lift the energy of a space and do their job well and carry themselves with ownership, particularly when no one's watching. And so in this episode, I am going to walk you through what I learned through my own experience and as a studio owner who's really, I've done a lot of hires, and they all haven't been pretty and they all haven't been great. But what I have done is I've learned a lot of lessons. And I've hired family, I've hired friends, I've hired teachers and expanded their roles. I've also done external hires of people who I didn't know. And I've been able to work out what really matters, like particularly in roles like a reception or as a team leader or a studio manager. And as I mentioned, it really is a bit of a follow-on from last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to that, stop this one, go back and have a listen. If that is something that you're looking at doing, whether it's creating a studio manager type role or expanding what you're currently doing, I just go into the nitty-gritty in that detail of exactly what I did and how I did it and the types of tasks that I gave people over the years. Okay, but let's now talk about what I look for when, and what I've learned from getting it right and wrong, and how you can use this insight when you're building your own team. Okay, so hiring for personality versus skill. All right, let's start with something that I did learn the hard way, but now I'm so confident by it that I will. Okay, in most cases, and I will go into details when I don't, but I will hire for personality over skill. And that's not just to say that skill doesn't matter, but for most roles in our industry, skills can be taught. Where personality, now that's just who someone is. And I'm not in the business of trying to change that. Now, of course, this is going to depend on the job that you are hiring for. So if I'm hiring for someone to do something like manage finances or lodge tax returns, then yeah, I definitely want someone with the right qualifications and a specific skill set. That's obviously like a non-negotiable. But when I'm hiring for someone for more of a people-focused role, like a studio manager or a team leader, what I care about most is how they connect, how they communicate, how they carry themselves when the pressure is on or when, say, something unexpected happens. because in those roles, personality is going to lead the way. They need to be able to communicate well with everyone, from students to parents to other team members. They need to be able to stay calm when things get stressful. They need to be able to solve problems without creating more. And they need to be able to represent your studio when you're not there. And that's when I ask myself, can I see this person working closely with me? Would I trust them to handle something without me needing to step in? And then if the answer is yes, then that's already a green flag. And so another question that my friend asked was, is it easier to hire from within, or is it easier to hire externally? And when do you know which is right? And this one's interesting because I have seen both sides. Now, sometimes yes is the answer, which is a really nice, clear answer for you. Yes, sometimes it is easier. And that's because, if someone's already been working for you, so you have a teacher that is, wanting more hours, you've seen them in action, you know how they show up at events, you know how they speak to families, you know whether they offer help when it's needed, or do they just quietly disappear when things get tough. You know if they're team-minded or they just clock in and out when it's convenient for them. And I've had some brilliant experiences promoting within teachers or team members who naturally took on more and proved that they were really ready for the next level and to be given more responsibility. However, I've also experienced the opposite. And when you give someone more hours and responsibility, it's usually, like within your team, it's usually because they've asked for it. And of course, it is important, but a lot of times the motivation is because they want to be earning more money in the week. And so if you were to give them more hours to get other tasks done, suddenly their limitations become exposed. So you could, and this is my experience, for someone, and it's one person I'm thinking of in particular, but you can find yourself micromanaging or fixing mistakes or realizing that they're not ready to lead. And now it puts you in a tricky position because you've said yes. And you most probably have a relationship with this person already, and you don't want to jeopardize that because, maybe they're teaching as well, or they have other roles in the studio, but it's not working. And then it's now costing you time and stress. So the answer to whether it's easier to hire from within, it really just depends. And so for me, it will always come back to, have they already shown me what they're capable of without being asked? And a little bit later in this episode, I'm going to go through like the raw details of exactly what I look for. So I'll give it to you. Now, the role, like for example, the receptionist role, I have tried it with a variety of different people. So I've done it myself. So for a time it was me sitting at the desk. I've had immediate family do it. So I've had my mum do it. I've had both my daughters do it. And we've also had family friends do it as well. I've had a good friend of mine do it, and I've spoken about her before on the podcast. Now, her daughters did end up dancing with me, but we had a relationship before her girls started dancing, and thankfully it's always been it was always an incredible relationship. Even when her girls finished dancing, she was still helping me out, whether it was at concerts or our open day or registration day. She was always there. In fact, we're still friends now. We're going out for dinner next weekend. So that's a good example of a friend whose daughters did dance in the end, work out for me. I've also had one of my teachers' mums. She helped out for a couple of years. I've never had an actual dance mum that I didn't have a relationship with before, but I do know that has worked for some people, but I just have never done that. And I've hired someone that I didn't know at all, so she applied. She interviewed well, and I gave her a go, and she worked out for a couple of years as well. And then I've also had teachers who have taken on more hours on top of their teaching load. And the truth is they all worked, but not because they were naturally amazing receptionists or they had experience in that role, but because they were the right kind of people. So what I'm looking for someone sitting at my front desk is someone who's friendly, someone who is willing to learn, comfortable in speaking to people, and able for me, once I've shown them how to do something once, they can run with it, or they would take notes, or they would record. So they were showing then me initiative that, they were listening, they were learning and taking it on. And again, it just came down to personality. It came down to their communication. It came down to their presence and their attitude. And if you're hiring for this kind of role, I'd stop worrying about who has the most office admin experience and ask yourself, can this person talk to a parent confidently? Will they represent the studio with warmth? Will they ask questions when they're unsure? Because those things to me just matter way more than a polished CV. Okay, so like I mentioned before, I was going to talk you through some traits that I look for. Now, this is just a really brutally honest list, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but as you know, I just like to give it to you straight. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anyone, but this is just the reality of my truth. I'm just sharing my truth with you. So because over the years, certain traits have become obvious green flags. These are the things that I look for now if I was hiring or when I was finally hiring at the studio, regardless of the role. All right, so the first one is if they brought a question to me, they also came with a possible solution. So they didn't just drop a problem on my desk and walk away. They've taken a moment to think it through and they come up with an idea or a next step. Like even if it's not perfect, to me, that showed ownership and not just like dumping it and making it my problem. So for an example of that, it might be like one of the teachers might come to me and say, the girls in the 8 and under ballet, they're not wearing their hair back in a bun anymore. It's driving me crazy. I keep telling them. And then, this particular teacher then would say, so what I was thinking, would it be okay if we then had a reward chart? So the student at the end of the month who always had their hair back got a special gift. So what that has done is showed me that there was an issue. She's come up with a solution, and whether I say yes or no, then that's neither here nor there. But it's just an example of, instead of just coming and saying they're not wearing their hair back in ballet and it's driving me crazy, and then all of a sudden walking away and then it's my problem now. So to me, that is a beautiful green flag for the beginning of a leadership role. Okay, the next thing is they complete a task, but they think one step ahead. So this is a little bit of an extension of that last one. They're not just going to tick a box and move on, or they've asked to do something and they do it and then that's it. They just pause. I just want them to say, I've done that. What's the next step here? Or is there anything else that this impacts? Because that's then showing me the initiative that feels like gold, right? To me, in a fast-paced studio where my business is running fast, I don't want to be just continually, giving tasks and then waiting for them to say, okay, what next? I want them to come up with those ideas. Okay, let me do the next thing. What's going to impact? I want them thinking bigger than what's just in front of them. Okay, the next thing is they ask good questions when they don't understand. So they don't fake it or freeze. They know when to speak up. They know when to clarify something or ask for help without shame. That tells me they're self-aware. They're curious and they're focused on getting it right. And I know sometimes there can actually be a bit of a fine line where you're telling someone something and they're just not getting it. They're not getting the concept. But those who are really good at leading or taking those particular roles, you can almost assess, that they are trying to the questions that they're asking to clarify, I think is a good green flag about whether they are going to work out well for you. Okay, the next one is they consistently show up even when no one's watching. So this is them showing that they care about the job and they're going to do it properly, not just when I'm standing there or, they are They can see that I'm overhearing. Have you ever seen when they're having conversations so loudly because they know they're being heard by others, particularly maybe if you're in the studio, and they're wanting you to hear what they're saying? That it's the quiet reliability that builds trust faster. And again, over the years, as a good leader, you should be able to see this and know that when this is happening, you're just aware of it. Okay, the next one is they are quietly confident, but don't lead with ego. So they carry themselves with pride and calm. In my studio, there was no drama. I did not allow for it because I hated it so much. I still do. I hate it. And there is just no room for my team to bring drama, to create drama or participate in it. If things were starting, if drama was happening, because obviously there's a lot of humans that are walking through my door, it was the staff's job to stop it, put a stop to it and forget it. It was finished there and then. But I have in the past seen some teachers love it and participate in it and make it swell into something that it shouldn't be swollen into. These particular people that I'm hiring, they don't need to be the loudest in the room or have the spotlight on them, but they're secure in what they bring, and that energy feels really grounded. And I pride myself as a leader, as a good leader, to see this through. I am rarely blindsided with this type of behavior. I say rarely because it has happened. In my earlier years, particularly in the last few years working with a team, I became very aware of this type of behavior and was able to really identify who was good at this and who wasn't. Okay, the next one is they bring good energy. So they don't need to be the bubbly extrovert, but I want them to add to the room and not drain it. Now, you may have even experienced this as different types of students in your class. I don't know how to explain it, but there are some personalities that will walk into a class and they lift the energy in the room, and there are others who will walk in and they will bring the room down, they drain the energy. It's wild. It's wild to me. But as a leader, as someone who is taking a role in the studio, whether it's a calm steadiness or a playful spark, I want them to lift the vibe rather than weigh it down. Okay, the next one is they don't do things for accolade. Now, they're not doing it for the recognition or the gold star or the pat on the back or to be told that they're doing a great job. They're doing it for the greater good of your business. But as a side note to that, also as a good leader, you should know what the love language of your team is. And if you can lead with that, if you have a team member that thrives off, so for example, words of affirmation, then make that your focus, because it will only benefit you in the long run because they're going to give more. Okay, the next one is simply that I vibe with them. Now, I know this sounds basic, but it is huge. We just get along. Conversations flow easily. There's mutual respect, and working with them feels light, not heavy or awkward. And the next one is they work well with everyone. And even if they don't personally like them, and I know this can sound a little bit awkward, but essentially they're grown-ups. They don't gossip. They don't make it personal. They just do the job with respect and maturity. That kind of emotional intelligence creates a solid team culture. Now, these are the traits that I've learned to trust. So when I see even just a few of these things naturally showing up, I will pay attention, because that person will often grow with the business. They'll care, they'll carry weight, they'll give you back time and space and not add more pressure. And ultimately, when we are bringing on a new team member, when we are starting a new role, this is what the goal should be. So to finish up, hiring is a big deal, especially in a studio where people are the business, which is absolutely our businesses. You don't want someone who just ticks every box on paper. You don't need someone who's done it all before. You need someone you can trust. You need someone who can bring good energy. You need someone who makes your job easier and not harder. So next time you're hiring or considering reshuffling roles, don't just look at the list of tasks. Ask yourself, do they take initiative? Do I feel calm and clear after speaking with them? Do they make space feel better? Can I trust them when I'm not in the room? Because that's what really matters. Now, if you're starting to feel like something needs to shift, whether it's your day-to-day workload, your team structure, or your role in the business, now is the time to start planning. I literally had one of the girls in our mastermind message me last week, and she said, was the podcast episode that I put out last week about me or about our conversation? And honestly, yeah, it was, because the conversations that we're having inside the mastermind are the same ones shaping the content that I share here. They're real questions being asked in real time, and they deserve real answers. So if you're hiring, if you're reshuffling your team, or you're wondering what your next role in the business should actually look like, then this is the kind of work that we do inside the Dance Studio Scaled Mastermind. And I don't just give you a template and send you on your way. We look at your studio, your goals, your challenges, and we map out what support, structure, and leadership actually looks like for you, because I can promise you it's going to be different from the studio owner sitting right next to you. Now, the next intake opens in September, so it is still a few months away. But if you're curious already, I'd absolutely advise you to join the waitlist. And that way we can then organize a time to have a quick chat to see if this may be something that is the right fit for you. So if it's resonating in any way, feel free to just send me a DM on Instagram at _Jen Dalton _ and just DM me the word team, and I'll send you through the waitlist details. I hope this episode has given you something to think about, and I'll be back in your ears next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other studio owners who would love it too. And let's keep the conversation going. Follow me on Instagram at Jen Dalton for more tips, insights, and behind-the-scenes moments to help you simplify and scale your studio. Until next time, keep dreaming big and taking action. I'll see you back here soon.